Hey everyone, we're live at the BGA for the State of the Industry report launch, and we're super excited to release the report this year, 2023. We've got some great insights, lots of great responses, so we look forward to sharing these with you today. Really pleased to welcome Leah and Nathan from Emfarsis, who have been our great collaborators in compiling the report. And this is the third year of the report, and we're delighted to see that it's grown year on year. This year we've had over 500 responses, the biggest number so far. So thank you to everyone who took part, to our board members and everybody here today. Welcome Leah and Nathan, and Flav as well, of course, from the BGA. And I'll let Leah and Nathan introduce the key takeaways.
Thanks so much, Mel. Just before we jump into the key takeaways, I thought it might be worth just spending a minute or so looking at who some of our amazing respondents are and the kind of the makeup of that 500 plus people that took the time to respond and contribute to the industry. So as I said, look, an amazing number, over 500, which is great, but it's worth noting that a lot of those come from some big name companies, everything from Google Cloud and AWS, Square Enix, Star Atlas, YGG, Binance, Polygon. We've got an amazing group, not just of members, but of industry professionals that see value in contributing their insights and ideas to the association. So, we've got some great companies represented. Looking back at 3 years of data now, when we look at the demographics, gender, it's sitting at around, it's been between 20% and 16.9% representation from females, which is something that, as the BGA, we know we've been wanting to work on and we continue to work on, but that has been relatively consistent. One of the interesting things has been the change in age. So it's actually, whereas 2022, we skewed a little bit higher in the 18 to 24-year-old bracket. That number's actually come down a little this year. Quite possibly they're all off doing AI at the moment. And the results skewed a little bit more into the 25 through to 44-year-old bracket. So alongside that, we actually saw quite a change in tenure, where last year we had a lot of people who were there's almost 50% of respondents have been in the industry for less than a year. But now we've seen that number shrink. A lot more people have been in the industry 1 to 3 years. So that's obviously also quite a few people came in, in 2021, 2022 and have stayed, which is great. So during quite a lot of change in the industry, we've had people come in and choose to stay, which is nice. And then we've also seen a bit of a broadening out of the regional focus. So I think that's probably got a lot to do this year with the amount of work that BGA was doing, representing across the globe at all the events. So there was a lot of great exposure IRL at all the major crypto and gaming events across the world. And I think we've seen that reflected in the numbers. So previous years, we really indexed high on Asia, but now we're just seeing a little bit more of a broad spread, which has also been nice to see a little bit more representation for the LATAM communities, MENA and Oceania as well. So we're seeing a broadening out of respondents, which actually helps give us a real good pulse on the industry. So yeah, whilst we're still changing as an industry, we're quite young. Some things are settling in and we're sort of seeing room to grow and tenure going. So positive signs to the industry. But I'll hand over to Leah now to take us through some of the key takeaways.
Yeah, happy to. So as always, we have 9 key takeaways. We usually class them based on demographics, drivers, and challenges for the industry. So just to tackle the demographics first, Nathan was just talking about this, but the real takeaways that we took were that I think this is incredibly bullish. Nearly 80% of people said that they believe they will continue working in this industry in the next year. Just to put that into context very quickly, this has been described as the worst year for layoffs in gaming in 15 years. There was over 8,000 layoffs in the gaming industry, and in crypto, over 2,000 layoffs in the first 2 months of 2023. So to see that level of confidence in people who are working within this industry, thinking that they're still going to be around in a year, is absolutely remarkable and really speaks to the strength of this industry. Secondly, so 44.3% received their pay in crypto or stable coins. Very interesting fact, because I think there are a lot of companies within this space that, they don't walk the talk. I've definitely worked with a lot of crypto companies that don't actually run their business on crypto payment rails. So very interesting to see that a lot of people do actually receive their remuneration in crypto or stablecoins. And as Nathan mentioned, we are seeing a trend in declining female participation, which is disappointing because I personally have experienced the fact that BGA has worked very, very hard to try to encourage women to be involved in this industry in a range of different ways, whether it's working in it or playing blockchain games. But I think we're seeing that we are suffering the fact that, it's very, very difficult to get women working and involved in the tech industry. We see that broadly. So that's something I think will become even more of a topic over the next year. So that's demographics. I'll skip through these so that we can kind of dive into the more interesting discussion. But the next slide is about drivers. So this is interesting. I think in this industry, everyone has an opinion. It's very, very difficult to reach consensus. But over the past 3 years, without a doubt, number one, every blockchain gaming professional recognizes that asset ownership or true digital property rights is the number one benefit that blockchain gaming brings. And I think that's a really interesting fundamental to begin from in terms of how we think about our thesis when we go forward in terms of what we're building and, the kind of vision that we want to bring about within this space. Secondly, I think this is a big one, perhaps not a surprise based on some of the trends that we've seen throughout the year, but big one is that Web2 Studios is going to drive the industry forward. I'm sure we'll talk a bit about that in depth later on. But this is pretty bullish, right? So this next one I love, actually. Over half of respondents expected that at least 20% of the entire gaming industry would adopt blockchain within the next year. Now, again, just to provide some context on that, that's over half. So some of those people thought that 80% or over half of the entire traditional gaming industry would be using blockchain within the next year, which is incredibly bullish. But when we do see some of the signals that have happened throughout the year, it might not be that far-fetched, actually. So I think that's a very interesting one in terms of where people see blockchain being adopted into traditional games, whether it's via studios or even franchises. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but let's tackle the challenges first, just to give us a balanced approach. So again, not surprising, this has been a problem since the advent of blockchain gaming. More than half of respondents think that onboarding is the number one problem in this industry. That has definitely carried on from year one, which was 3 years ago, 2021, when we started doing this. Play to earn was the biggest driver in the industry, and that was really looking at things like scholarships, for example, and NFT rentals that were helping people get into blockchain games. Obviously, the industry has moved very far beyond that now, but we're still seeing that onboarding is a very, very big challenge for the industry. The second thing I would point out is that this is another one that has come up on top every single year. Everyone appears to be battling that misconception that blockchain gaming is a scam or a Ponzi scheme. I think this is one that we really need to tackle head on because it seems like it's very top of mind for a lot of people who are building in this industry. Must be a struggle because I think there have definitely been some bad actors in the space, but it seems like a lot of people feel like that is reflecting on the legitimate people who are trying to do good in the space. And finally, so user acquisition, that's actually a new one. So user acquisition has come up as something that has been a real problem for founders and developers. I guess in Web2, you kind of have this very established playbook in terms of how you go out and launch a game, how you acquire users, how you distribute it, how you scale it. everyone knows, but in Web3, it's completely different. The type of data that we have access to in terms of Web3 players is completely different. What we're seeing in the data this year is that people are seeing that it's been a challenge, but also an opportunity, because we're starting to see Web3 native UA solutions come through. So I'll leave it there, because I actually really want to throw this conversation to Flav and Mel, because I think they have a very, very strong relationship with all the members of the BGA. They're the ones that are out on the floor at the events having those conversations. So I'm super interested to see if the data, is exactly what they were expecting, or if it's a surprise. So maybe we can just start with the usual one that we always tackle first in this report, which is, why are we doing this at all? Why blockchain for gaming? Why should we have blockchain as the rails for games of the future? As I mentioned before, we saw that number one, every single year, everyone says it's all about digital property rights. Asset ownership for players is one thing that we can all agree on. The next two, second and third options actually kind of cycle between each other over the years, which is super interesting. But it's either new revenue models or player reward models. So I wanted to throw to you guys and see, what do you think? Like, does this reflect what you have been chatting with people about on the event floors, or is this a bit of a surprise?
Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Nathan. First, thanks a lot for all the work you did for this amazing report. I just really wanted to say that, because just seeing the different takeaways you just introduced, I think trust and confidence are the two words we can think of when we see the results and to understand the state of the industry. So thanks a lot for that, and for everything you did for the report and other thing we will be doing in the following weeks. But based on your question, I think there are two things. We participated a lot and still participate in a lot of conversation with blockchain game companies. They're organizing Twitter spaces and a lot of different conversation to just how we could educate the gaming industry about the benefit of blockchain gaming. And obviously our ownership is the first one, and for different reasons. I think for me, the main reason why I use ownership as the bridge between Web3 and Web2 to explain Web3 to the Web2 world will be the sense of freedom. I think the freedom for players, more opportunity for players, and benefit to play games and to be involved in games, not only as a gamers, but also as a stakeholders. So that's a new value proposition for the gaming industry. Not easy to understand as well. I'm not shocked by the results, and that's a good thing, because I think it's also the easiest way to explain blockchain gaming as well, because not only through freedom, but also when you compare Web2 games with what you could do with Web3. Like, obviously you see a lot of different game companies, game studios who are actually releasing, selling a lot of game items, but at the end of the day, they decided either to remove completely the game items you actually pay for different reasons, social reason, just to compete and everything, but also sometimes they remove the game completely. So when you see that and you see what you could do with Web3, you say, okay, that might be an easy way to explain ownership based on what's happening in the gaming industry. So that's not the only thing, but that's the thing I have in mind. And the other thing I wanted to say is something that you will see on the report I really liked very much, is the comparison of the changes of attitudes, how you name it, in terms of the why blockchain in gaming in 2021, 2022, in 2023, and you actually highlight that in the report in terms of what's happening exactly. And I liked the fact that you highlighted the rise of interoperability, going from 0 in 2021 to the sixth place to the 5th place in 2022, and it's definitely a very important subject as well. The opposite for DAO and centralized governance actually going down, and I think we can understand that also very clearly. So yeah, for me, based on your question and based also on the different numbers we got from 2021, 2022, I think it was 69% were considering asset ownership for players as the main benefit. I'm not I'm not surprised, I will say.
One of the things I thought was actually interesting is Leah touched on the second and third place, the revenue models for the studios and player reward models have actually flipped. But it's also interesting to consider the changing demographics from the regional representation. So in the previous year, in 2022, we actually had a higher proportion of respondents from Asia, and player reward models actually focused a little bit more as one of the benefits. And that, I think, kind of harks back to many of the ways that the Asian industry has adopted gaming over the years, and kind of almost has a little bit more of a direct connection with the financialization of games and it still being enjoyable. Whereas I think the US still has a bit of a, you can't combine finance and games and still have fun. So it's interesting to see them switch around over the years.
Well, I think we've seen that in terms of the free-to-play model, like in the early 2000s. I wasn't there to experience, but I've definitely learned from many of the wonderful people who have welcomed me into the blockchain gaming industry, but they love to recall those kind of stories about how there were many free-to-play games that were not welcome in the US that were driven forward in China and Korea primarily. And we might be seeing trends like that again in terms of Asia really being kind of open to the financialization of games, or at least not, being closed off to it. But before we dive into Mel, I was just wondering, I know that you're on the floor of a lot of those events as well. The asset ownership for players, do you hear that as, a really key benefit as well? And is it different between, say, Web3 native founders versus traditional Web 2 game developers?
Yeah, I think it's firstly, I'm also not massively surprised by the results of this also. And just to pick up on something that Flav said is that it's the easiest way, I think, to explain the benefits of blockchain gaming. And I think that's something that we particularly saw maybe at conferences like Gamescom, for example, where we had a lot of interest around, why blockchain for gaming? Why should we implement blockchain? And that was an easy way to explain to people what the key benefits are. So I guess, yes, there are differences in the conversations that are being had on the different floors, because obviously at the Web3 events, they get it more off the bat and they have other questions that they are more curious about having answered. But it's definitely for sure the undisputed number one benefit to explain.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of unsurprising, but at the same time, exciting that we do have this consensus in terms of that those digital property rights unlocking all of the other benefits that we just discussed and really kind of being the building blocks to everything. At least if we have consensus on that, we can move forward from a pretty solid place. So we might be ready to move on to the next slide.
Yeah, certainly. So before I actually touch on this year's results, looking at the challenges facing the industry, I thought I might just call out the, I guess, the overall shift. Both this year and last year, we had onboarding challenges as number one, but that's actually market change from back when we started this first report in 2021. Regulatory uncertainty was number one by far. But you've also got to, I guess, put that in the context of, at that stage, play to earn had just come on board. It was a completely new mechanic. There was still a lot of uncertainty just in the general crypto space around various jurisdictions and what movements were happening there.
The crypto markets were hot.
And yes, so there's a lot of interest, a lot of heat at that point. And now it feels a little bit more like we've settled in. Some questions have been answered. Some certain jurisdictions are possibly still not as clear on their regulatory rulings as the entire industry would like, not just gaming. But it feels like, the adults are at the table and we're definitely starting to see motions in that direction. So it feels like the industry's been able to park that level of concern for a little bit. And that's when we really start to transition, I guess, from, what might have been considered a bit of the Wild West into onboarding challenges is actually a pretty common challenge across gaming as a whole. This is obviously, we deal with a lot more challenges in terms of the onboarding to crypto as well as gaming, but these are the sort of challenges that face a lot of traditional gaming companies. So this was called out in 2022. We saw the challenges then, and it's still come up as the number one challenge facing the industry at the moment. But before we get into second and third, be quite interested to hear, obviously we've called it out, we know the challenges are there. Do you want to sort of give us a bit of a view as the global, I guess, development director for BGA, Flav? Like, are you seeing that we're seeing new companies come up trying to solve these challenges? Feel free to spruik some of the members here. It's it's the whole point. Half our audience are games wanting to know how to solve this problem, and the other half are some really innovative entrepreneurs who are bringing a lot of their knowledge from Web 2 into this space to solve some of these problems. So what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think I see through these first position for onboarding challenges. I see that as maybe a way for the industry to not to be so good at explaining what's happening in our industry, like how we are trying to be better at onboarding players. I think we are seeing more and more solutions coming. I will try to name not too many of our members, because if I forget something, I'm not sure it's going to be okay for me after the call. But anyway, that's our goal. Like, it's really our goal to explain what's happening, the new thing, and a lot of things is happening when you see that and you try to listen to what's happening. Like, we're talking about account abstraction, ZK rollup, ZK sync, smart wallets, MPC wallets. Like, a lot of things is happening, but it's very techy first, and it needs to be understood by the game companies as well, but still a lot of challenges as things as well. Like, it might be easier for people to be onboarded into a game with the intention of giving you an experience with ownership and everything. First, because what we see most of all is not the necessity to be onboarded with the Web3 layer at first. Like, you can actually play the game, and afterwards we're gonna educate you about how to cash out, or maybe how to claim the ownership of the NFT you just won because you won a battle of something else. So I think in terms of UX, we're seeing more and more improvements into that, so it's easy for onboarding as well. But for the technology and the wallet, I think it's getting better and better, and that's our role to talk about that. I think we're not too bad, but we still need to provide some awareness, and that's what we do through the demo days. That's why I love the demo days, because it's always good to see an article about how to onboard players, but when you go to demo days and you actually have some people like Sequence, okay, I said it. I mentioned one of them, like Sequence, who actually demo the back office for game developers to actually release their games with Web3. That's better. That's easier to understand how to use it and how to apprehend these technologies. So I would say it's getting better and better. But when you see, in the other hand, I think we're still stuck with the incapacity of games to actually have cross communication. Okay, if you have the same protocol, like they're all on Polygon, so it's easy for them to communicate, it might be, but still there is a lot of competition in terms of protocol and in terms of network. So at the end of the day, if one game would like to do a lot of cool things regarding ownership and interoperability with another game with another chain, still a lot of challenges into that. So,
and that's something that's also broader than just the gaming space. That's crypto as a whole. We're all looking to try and solve a lot of those problems. I was interested to note here 1, 2, and 3 in 2023. Onboarding, poor gameplay, and concepts not fully understood are actually the same top 3 from last year. Very easy to think that maybe we haven't made inroads there, but as you sort of touched on, Flav, every time we start to really invest in the education of the concepts, we spin up a whole another new cool technology like 6551, or looking at some other aspect of it. So we learn a little, and then someone creates something new. So it's kind of that never stops. And I think for anyone who's been in gaming long enough, all right, we have, the gameplay's improved a lot, but gamers are never going to be satisfied with gameplay. I think, we're always going to be wanting better and better gameplay. So I don't suspect that one's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Looking at, there are challenges, but when you look at what the negative impacts have been over the last 12 months, honestly, as someone who's in the industry, might jump to the next slide. We can have a look in a bit of detail here. In terms of the negative impacts in 2023, by far the biggest was crypto winter. Everything's down. We've had, prices go down. We have people leave the market. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of other things vying for attention. And so crypto winter.
And this is number one for 2 years running as well. So, I mean, again, not surprising, but we were really seeing that kind of reflected in the survey respondents.
You then, beyond that, you have macroeconomic events, and everything's pretty small after that. Like there are two big things that are facing the whole crypto industry, and macro is affecting the whole, the whole globe at the moment. Interestingly, games and platforms banning NFTs had a negative impact in 2023. Something that it's always been on our mind. We keep watching. I know BGA is always out there advocating. So hopefully we get past that, and we get the warm embrace of all the traditional games. But is what it is. I think we've seen that for a couple of years now. Likewise, we look at some of the misconceptions. This is what the industry hear on a regular basis. What's the kind of pushback we get that we know is not necessarily rooted in fact, and it's something that we as an industry really want to counter and explain. And I think for the third straight year, crypto's a scam, gaming's a Ponzi, blockchain gaming's a Ponzi scheme is out there number one. So this is something that I think we all really keep front of mind and look at how we can kind of counter. And then you have the typical kind of crypto arguments, like it's for the dark web, it's a bubble, all those sorts of things. So there's some misconceptions that we can really work against, like games aren't fun. We need to stop criticizing each other and support the industry. But some of these are kind of much wider than just the gaming sector.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think these misconceptions around crypto being associated with the dark web have been fueled this year around some media reports around crypto being used particularly to fund terrorist organizations. And it's I think it's a great thing for the BGA to be able to take a lead on, because these are issues that are facing the industry, and there's a lot of legitimate founders and developers out there that have to deal with this. Obviously, they have absolutely no exposure to that space whatsoever, but it is reflecting a bad light on the industry. And I was just wondering, personally, I don't know if founders kind of suffer in silence, and if they're sort of receiving this, bad feedback in terms of how the industry is being thought of, or if you guys, Flav and Mel, do you actually hear founders kind of talking about this as something that they, are actively trying to fight every day? I'm not sure what that conversation goes down like.
Maybe I can answer on this. I think not so much in terms of it being a Ponzi scheme, but more that it's misunderstood, that technologies are misunderstood, and being able to access it is also misunderstood. So I think in 2 points, that it's one, a point of education, and we need to keep educating and changing the way that we communicate with end users, and also slightly a matter of time, and that anything that is new is going to be kind of looked at with apprehension, and that over time, as more mainstream players also come into the space and we continue educating on these points, that hopefully we can instill more confidence in the blockchain gaming industry.
Yeah, 100%.
with that, touching on that confidence that may be due to build, moving out of the challenges, we sort of look at careers. And one of the interesting stats that came up this year was, despite all of these challenges, the misconceptions, crypto winter hitting hard, we actually still have almost 80%.
Oh, we might move to the next slide.
80% of the respondents said that they still see themselves working in blockchain gaming in 12 months' time. Now, that is down a little bit from last year's survey when we were at almost 90%. But given everything that's happening at the moment with the large-scale redundancies we've seen across tech as a whole, as Leah said, I think this is probably the harshest year for layoffs in traditional gaming in 15 years. The fact that we still have 4 out of 5 professionals saying, "Nah, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere." I take that as quite bullish and really
Super bullish.
Buoyant for founders and companies investing in the space to know that, not everyone's going to AI. You might read the headlines about that, but a lot of us here are for the games, and we're going to keep building, and it's what we want to do.
That's a great point, actually, because we didn't ask that. We didn't say, are you thinking about, jumping to AI? But it was just, do you think you're still going to be in blockchain gaming within the next year? And everyone responding was very, very confident. To temper that, I would just say we are asking blockchain gaming industry professionals who are obviously very passionate about what they do, how they're passionate about the next year of their life. So this is I just want to temper that in terms of this data point, but it does speak to the strength and confidence of this little cohort that we have, this growing industry, and the kind of people who are building it, because they are definitely here for the long run. They're not here for a short time or a good time. They're here to actually change the world. So this is one of my favorite takeaways from the entire survey. Not to interrupt you, but I love it.
No, all good. I was going to, just for actually kind of get your feedback on whether you're sort of seeing that confidence out on the showroom floor when you're chatting to people. I thought it was also interesting. We do really look at the current organizations that people are working at. So in the survey, we look at what industries they've come from to see, so we can kind of track who's coming over from traditional gaming into blockchain gaming, what other industries they're coming from. And we're at about 45% of respondents are currently working in a gaming studio that's either dedicated blockchain gaming, hybrid, and there is a small percentage of traditional gaming company respondents. But then we look at, we've got tooling, we've got guilds, the VCs, media, professional services, and then traditional crypto, if you can call, exchanges and DeFi and marketplaces. You've probably got the best finger on the pulse for this, you guys, but is this what you're seeing across the market? Do you think this is fairly representative of the membership base? And are you kind of seeing that bullish response in terms of dedication to the field?
In terms of the ecosystem of blockchain gaming itself, I won't be able to tell you if it matches with the organization we have here, but definitely matches with our organization, like the kind of members we have. Like I don't know exactly if it's 44%, but I will say it's nearly a half of our members, they are gaming companies. So actually, if you take the gaming studios and the guilds and esports, you actually got half of the respondents as well. So I would say it really pictures the division we got in the BGA, the repetition in terms of the type of companies we got. So yeah, it's a good way to see our ecosystem through the type of respondents we got from this year, definitely.
And Mel, you spent a lot of time chatting to the various members. Are you seeing that level of confidence, or are you thinking that have people been starting to voice concerns?
Go ahead, Mel. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I think the bear market in some ways has had maybe a slight positive effect in that the people who are still here and are still building are the guys that are really passionate about gaming and that we'll see come through in the next year or so. So I think there is still a lot of confidence and, as Leah mentioned, a lot of passion in this space. And yeah, we look forward to seeing that happening and coming through in 2024. Sorry, Flav, go for it.
Yeah, I agree. And through our relationship with members, when we talk with them, like it's good to capitalize on this number, to be honest, because either we are all delusional with the adoption of blockchain within gaming, but I don't think so. And it's not easy time. We won't say that for the industry based on the crypto winter, like everything you just say before. But I feel like we always in conversation with members where we try to find solutions because we have conviction about what's happening. So yeah, it's good for us. And for me particularly, it's perfect data number because it's usually what I take when what I use when talking to the gaming industry to just explain the level of confidence we have in the ecosystem. And one more thing just before, I saw your question, Gaspard, on the chat. I'm going to address the question to the team. So yeah, I think we're going to take the time at the end. If we got time, I will address the question. So sorry, go ahead, Leah and Nathan. I will share the question to you too at the same time. So don't worry.
Yeah, I think we've only got maybe a couple of slides left. So then that would be great to open up the questions. So I would love to point to what people are thinking will drive the industry forward from here. So the big thing that has come out of this part of the survey is, and this has been fairly consistent over the last couple of years, is that Web2 studios are going to drive it forward. Not just studios, but franchises as well. But I think people realize that it's really those big studios that are going to be the game changer, pun intended. So we've seen it this year. It's 37.8% of people who are coming out on top. And I just wanted to combine this with another stat that isn't on this particular slide. But as we mentioned earlier, over half of respondents felt that at least 20% of the gaming industry would be adopting blockchain within the next year, which is incredibly bullish. But if you think about it from the fact that in 2023 alone, I've got a list here and it is non-exhaustive. We've seen CCP say that EVE Online is going Web3, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Nexon and MapleStory, Bandai Namco, Comtois, Sega, Konami, Atari, Netbubble. I could continue. It's actually pretty interesting to see, given in 2021, when I went to GDC, I was a little bit nervous about saying the word NFT out loud because I might get punched in the face. Maybe not that bad, but there was certain aggression toward Web3 and NFTs. And then 2 years later, suddenly we're seeing in the bear market that all these really big Web2 studios and franchises are adopting Web3. So, I'm feeling quite bullish about that. And, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people kind of say that 20% of the traditional gaming industry adopting blockchain within the next year is a little bit too much, but actually, maybe it's not that far-fetched. So, I'd love to just throw that to you guys. The only other thing that I will add to this, which I think is kind of reflective of that, game improvements has been a big topic of conversation over the last couple of years. The big criticism of Web3 games was that they're unfun and people don't like to play them, that they were just all about grinding. And I think particularly in 2023, we've seen a lot of game releases already, particularly in the last quarter. Q4 for 2023 has been a really big quarter for releases. We were just in Manila, Philippines at the Web3 Game Summit hosted by YGG, and we had over 40 incredible Web3 games, all playable now across multiple genres. And, I think that was really challenging, that idea that Web3 games are unfun or perhaps there isn't a lot of discovery options for people. So what do you guys think? Is it Web2 studios? Do we have to rely on them to make Web3 mainstream, or could it be something else?
If you could have a lot of different conviction for this one. For me specifically, I still think we need to rely on big studios, gaming studios, to actually help us drive growth and especially awareness about what you could do with Web3 gaming. But that's very my personal opinion, because when you see, and you said it, like more and more games are released every day, every week. And that's, I think, something we will see for the next month as well for 2024. So it's very good. And you see also a large number of them, they also released in different distribution platform, you already know, like Epic and everything. But you also see other platform trying to be the Web3 gaming platform and distribution platform for their games to be searched, to be played as well. So yeah, we'll see. I'm a little bit happy about the fact that we got more respondents for this year, and that we see the game improvements a little bit less than last year, which makes me think that's a good thing. It's still something we need to see, because we need to show games to the gamers. But I feel like it's a good thing to see in the report as well, and a positive feedback. And I think based on the fact that we can actually capitalize on games you could play with the Web3 mindset, and they will have Web3 layer for some of them in the futures as well.
Yes, I completely agree. It's very exciting. Oh, before we go on to the next slide, I did just want to bring something up very briefly. Play-to-earn mechanics. I think it's the elephant in the room that must be addressed. In 2021, when we did this survey for the first ever time, it was number one. Everyone thought that play-to-earn was the number one thing to drive this industry forward, that it had the biggest positive impact. And it was true at that time. It had onboarded millions and millions of players to this space, and catapulted blockchain gaming into an area that was, previously unthinkable in terms of being considered by mainstream gamers. But fast forward to today, and I think, the particular model has had a lot of criticisms, which has been rightly so in a lot of cases. But I do actually think it's relative to the state of the crypto cycles as well. And, that financialization of games, as we discussed before, I think there's certain markets around the world that are kind of open to it, and there's some that are not. So I'm actually, this is just personal opinion, but I kind of think I'm interested to see what happens with play-to-earn mechanics in terms of its ranking, what people are thinking about in terms of it being a driver of the industry in 2024 and even 2025, when perhaps we kick into the next bull run. Because I don't think that model was perfected yet, and I don't think we've seen the end of it. And I think it would be exciting to kind of go back there and explore it. I don't know what you guys think about that, because it's kind of a controversial topic.
Well, but my views. If I can get paid to sit and play games, I'm down for it. I'm all about it.
I feel like so many people like that. I can get paid to play a video game, like stuff.
Maybe we haven't perfected the model yet, but let's keep trying. But I did just want to touch on this, because I think this actually goes towards Gaspodi's question. Does user acquisition make it into one of the benefits of blockchain? And this to me is where I'm sort of like, okay, some people don't like the term play to earn. It in my mind was an attempt at a new user acquisition strategy that couldn't be done in traditional gaming. We had new technology, we tried a thing, maybe that's not the perfect one, but now we're starting to see the next wave of, solutions that leverage the blockchain components,
which also
to achieve user acquisition.
What went wrong last time? We learned a lot from the first cycle, so it'll be very interesting to see the next iteration. But what do you guys think?
I think I will say, just sorry for that, just for my screen not to be shut down during the live. I think we are asking the question to professionals in the blockchain gaming space. So obviously we won't see that number anytime soon, especially this number lower and lower for the next year, I think, because for me, being a big player, the main incentive of playing the game is not to earn anything in terms of money. I think play to earn should be more based to the challenges we are facing, because you said it, to the main challenges. The third one is misconception about blockchain gaming. And when we talk about when we talk to the gaming industry about or anyone about what is blockchain gaming, the first thing coming to their mind is, yeah, blockchain gaming is play to earn, which is absolutely not. It should not be defined as such. It could be a part of it. I agree with you, Nathan, for different reasons, but you cannot give a definition of blockchain gaming based on what is play to earn. And I think it's going to be one of the misconceptions we will need to fight for 2024 for sure.
That is so true. I think this industry has expanded and diversified to such a great extent, and people just aren't aware of that yet. So I think that's a really big communication challenge throughout 2024 to help people understand how diverse this industry is. Melzi, from your perspective, what do you think on this topic?
When I came into the blockchain gaming space, these were two of the most exciting things for me, were digital asset ownership and the fact that you could play and earn in the game as opposed to play to earn. And I think, I thought it was great. But I think, yes, we've seen a shift. It's not sustainable. And I think it's about, tweaking that model and being able to earn within the game without that being the main premise of playing.
But 100%. Definitely agree with your feedback, Nathan, based on the question from Gaspard for user acquisition, because I think it's not something we highlight very much, user acquisition, because there are so many ways, new ways, based on what's happening in the wallet, to actually do things regarding user acquisition. It's not easy, I'm not saying that, but based on what you could see in a wallet from another game, you could actually act on this and try to acquire users, like vampire attack we see in the NFT world, but that's not the only thing. So yeah, that's a solid thing to say, that maybe we will need to mention more user acquisition as a benefit for blockchain. But on the report we released, we didn't get that, only as a challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I think
we have actually touched on UA, like Web3 native UA, and how that could be both a challenge but an opportunity. And I think this year we've only just started to see the beginnings of Web3 native UA, like particularly through guilds and questing solutions, and looking at, how do you allow people, players, to build that on-chain reputation, that Web3 identity, and how that could be a bottom of the funnel solution as opposed to a top of the funnel solution, which we're all kind of used to as per like the Web 2 playbook for launching and distributing games. I really love that in terms of how the conversation has changed this year around, we don't know how to do user acquisition because Web3 is so different. We don't have access to all the data that we would usually rely on in terms of where does this person live? How old are they? What is their gender? And I can't see their Facebook account because, they might be connecting with a permissionless wallet. But perhaps we actually have access to far more valuable data, which is both immutable, transparent, provable, verifiable. And I think now we're starting to see some Web3 guilds, games, platforms, solution providers experiment with things like soulbound tokens, for example, in terms of, well, if you really want to understand more about a Web3 player, could you issue a soulbound token so that you know that the only way that they could have got that is through earning it? I mean, we should probably have an entire session, separate session on this, because I think it's a huge one. I think it's super exciting.
We might do that in the new year, but Gaspard, there is 3 pages of this year's report dedicated to Web3 growth, UA, distribution, and scaling. So if you haven't already, jump on the website, download the report, and you can flick through it. But yeah, it's really ramping up, and I think it's going to be a big topic in the year ahead as we move into predictions.
And thank you for the questions too, because that helps us know that we are really hitting on the right topics that are important to industry and BGA members. Oh, this one's me. Okay. So predictions for 2024. Look, we're just going to touch on this very lightly because, again, we are planning to have a series of content, surprise, throughout January where we can kind of dig into a lot of these topics in more depth because, the BGA represents a wealth of knowledge and expertise throughout its member base. where we'd love to be able to bring people in to talk in more depth about what some of these topics and themes mean for the year ahead. And particularly for predictions, because they're quite opinionated. We had lots of them come up this year, so we tried to really kind of condense it down to some of the, I guess, more pertinent predictions. But we picked 5. So we've already talked about the first, the shift from Web 2 to Web 3. I think that's a big topic that is probably not a big surprise. Another one, AI. Not a surprise, but I think in terms of its applications and how people are thinking about using it could be very interesting, particularly in Web3 gaming. Looking at new standards that are popping up, like ERC 6551, the game Parallel Colony, that is looking at, this idea of an NFT backpack with AI that you could kind of tell what to do throughout the day. It goes off and, acts for you within the game and comes back within a 24-hour period, or whatever the case may be. Those kind of applications could be very interesting, particularly to the crypto space, because I think a lot of people are even a little bit skeptical, like, does blockchain and AI go together at all? So we might actually see that in Web3 gaming. So this one, the development and launch of a major Web3 gaming hit. We're talking major. I mean, this is very bullish. I'd be interested to know what people think. Is it possible? Is it going to happen in 2024, or is that a little bit too early? And how do you define major? Because, I mean, you could say Axie Infinity was major for Web3 gaming, but are we going to talk about major in terms of like Web 2 scale? Maybe we can debate that one out. This one, again, I hear this all the time. Blockchain games will just be called games. Now, I love this one personally because I think on the back end, we've seen the emergence of fully on-chain games and autonomous worlds in the meantime. And those are games that are kind of leaning into the decentralized element. So I'll be interested to hear what people think about it going forward. Do we just want to make a great game, or do we want to explore what makes a great Web3 game or a great blockchain game? Great one for a debate topic. And finally, I love this one, the end of predatory revenue models. What a soundbite.
Does that mean the end of traditional gaming?
I hope not.
I didn't mean it like that.
But I really love this because, this one actually came out of a discussion around how we were just saying before that free-to-play models, for example, were adopted in Asia prior to the West. And it was because Asia doesn't necessarily have this aversion to the financialization of games. But this prediction is actually about almost replacing free-to-play, or kind of like leveling up from free-to-play, in that financialization was always inherent to games, but it's been about how we balance the value distribution between who makes the game, who brings the value in terms of community and players, and so on. So I really love that. I think it's super interesting about this idea of what is a predatory revenue model and how could we innovate on that to create something better for the future and create value for everyone. That is literally scratching the surface in terms of what we learned from this survey from the people who replied to it. And, I think this is really just kicking off maybe many months of content in terms of digging into what this means for the next year. So we wanted to bring everyone in now so that we can start thinking about the discussions that we should have in the early new year. But look, with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Flav and Mel, because they've been such an incredible support while we've been trying to pull all of this together. I'm sure we make it look easy, but it's not. But, it really is based on the opinions and insights of everyone in this industry. And we only hope to grow this thing so much bigger next year. So we really appreciate everyone who has come along tonight. With that, I'd actually love to throw back to Flav and Mel to explain a little bit more about the BGA and how people can get involved, the kind of people who are representing it now, so that, hopefully it's inspiring people to take up a post in 2024 as well.
Thanks a lot. Thanks both of you for everything. It was challenging, but worth it, definitely. That's why we exist. That's really to picture the state of the industry based on the members we have, but also the whole ecosystem. So if we drive growth to some of our members, we drive growth to the entire ecosystem we have. And as compared with the gaming industry, it's still nothing. So we have a long way to go. And that's why it's very good to capitalize on those reports, because we learn each year, we can learn about everything around blockchain gaming, not only the benefits and everything, but also the challenges. So we can give an honest opinion about what we have to face as an industry for the next month. So I'm going to be very quick for the rest of the presentation. But we, as a non-profit organization, I think the nature of who we are define our activities as well, and our commitment to our members. We have board members elected this year. Actually, Leah are part of it, but you also Yasmina, Shaban, Ideaki, Christina, Mariano, Alex, Sebastian as the president. I think the value of these board members is that we can capitalize on all of them on a lot of different topics, and with a lot of different feedback as well. So it also will define the different conversation we will have based on the report we just released today. And as Leah just said, we're just opening new ways to have different conversation about what we just released. So you have the BGA team with Sebastian, with Melanie, with Maud as event manager. We have also ambassador. We're very proud that this year we actually managed to have on board BGA members, but also individuals who could actually help us expand the reach of the BGA across the globe. So in APAC, Japan, with Kusei from Pacific Meta, Luis in Latin America as well, Alex from Fest Wallet as well in Korea, with Gio, our admin, and soon to be announced a social media manager. We're very excited about that, because we know one of the biggest value we could give to our members is awareness, visibility, and we know that you have a lot to say as a member, and we need to help you with that. So that's going to be exciting time.
Flav just dropping some alpha.
Watch out. A small one. Yeah. It's always good to have a alpha when you have a presentation. So here you go. And we have a lot of quotes in the report, and you will see a lot of different ones from our board members, but not only, as well from Yatsu and other mindful individuals, and on a lot of different topics, like addressing the gender imbalance and the 2024 prediction. A lot of members, but also members who are really supporting a lot our effort to grow, with gold members like Ubisoft and Scale and Vert, and a lot of them. So we really appreciate their help and support in our day-to-day basis. But you see, we don't have enough space to actually show everyone, or you cannot see a lot of logos in there, but that's our members, and we continue to grow depending on what you're developing a new involvement in the BGA and the blockchain gaming ecosystem. So get in touch with Emfarsis team, with Leah, with Nathan, and with us, with Melanie, with me, with Maud, and our social media manager. Thanks a lot for being here today. It was such a pleasure, and it's just the beginning of what we would be able to address, and new ways to help and support the ecosystem and our members as a whole. So thanks a lot again, Leah and Nathan. Thanks, Mel, for being here today. And we will see you soon, and actually tomorrow morning. Like, we're not waiting a lot of time, because we're gonna welcome new members, including WeMade and WeMix. So quite a huge news as well, and our ability to attract big game companies like that. So that's exciting time for sure. Thanks a lot, Leah. Thanks a lot, Nathan. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
You.
Bye.